Every parent dreams of seeing their child excel in school and earn a scholarship to a great college. It's a moment filled with pride and hope. But for some children, that pressure can become almost too much to bear. Imagine feeling as if every achievement is a way to make your family proud, and then realizing that the weight of those expectations can lead to something far darker. For the Powell family, what began as a bright future quickly spiraled into a nightmare. A single shocking phone call shattered their world and revealed secrets that their daughter Sydney had kept hidden. This is a heartbreaking tale of Brenda Powell, a devoted mother and passionate professional, illustrating just how swiftly life can change from ordinary to tragic. How did a dream of academic success turn into a story of loss and despair? Let's delve deeper into the events that unfolded, exploring the pressures and challenges that led to this unimaginable outcome. A picture-perfect life. Brenda K. Powell lived in the charming city of Akron, Ohio, where she worked as a child life specialist in the hematology oncology unit at a local children's hospital. For 28 years, Brenda dedicated her life to helping sick children and supporting their families during some of their darkest moments. She founded the hospital's teen oncology program, showing incredible compassion and understanding. Those who knew her described her as a devoted wife and mother, someone who was always there to lend a helping hand. Brenda had a teenage daughter, Sydney, who seemed to be on a successful path. Sydney was a bright student at St. Vincent St. Mary High School, playing soccer and even lacrosse. Her grades were impressive, and she graduated with a high GPA. Brenda and her husband, Steve, felt immense pride as they watched their daughter flourish. They supported her every step of the way, attending games and celebrating her academic achievements. When it was time for college, they chose Mount Union University, which was close to home, and offered Sydney a presidential scholarship. This was a significant accomplishment, and the family felt relieved that Sydney's hard work had paid off. But little did they know that this new chapter in Sydney's life would be the beginning of a tragic turn of events, the illusion of success. Sydney began her journey at Mount Union in the fall of 2018, excited and ready to take on the world. However, as time went on, things began to change. Despite her early success, she struggled academically. By December 2019, Brenda and Steve received alarming news. Sydney had failed 3 out of her 4 classes. This was shocking for a family that had always celebrated academic achievement. Instead of confronting her parents, Sydney made a desperate choice. She hid the truth. Imagine being in Sydney's shoes, feeling like you can't tell your parents about your failures. Would you choose to hide the truth too? She began to weave a web of lies, telling her parents everything was fine, while she fell deeper into despair. In January 2020, she returned to Mount Union, maintaining the illusion that everything was okay. She even told her best friend Lauren that she would be moving away for a while to figure things out. Little did they know, Sydney had been suspended and was no longer enrolled. She was living a double life, using her parents' trust against them. The breaking point. As time went on, Sydney's situation worsened. She was evicted from her dorm but didn't tell her parents. Instead, she paid for hotel rooms, trying to keep up the appearance that she was still attending college. It's heartbreaking to think about the lengths she went to in order to maintain the facade. On February 25th, 2020, a critical moment occurred. Brenda texted Sydney, asking why she felt like she was scamming her. Sydney, terrified of being found out, replied that her grades were good, a complete lie. Can you imagine the weight of those lies? The fear of disappointing loved ones can lead to desperate choices. Steve, her father, tried to log into the college portal to pay for tuition, but was denied access. Confused and concerned, he asked Sydney about it, and she quickly told him there was a mistake with the college. He believed her without hesitation. After all, Sydney had always been a good student, and her parents trusted her. On March 3rd, 2020, everything changed. Steve received an urgent call from Mount Union officials, informing him that Sydney was no longer enrolled. The shock was immense. His heart raced as he immediately checked the Life 360 app, which showed Sydney was at home. Why was she home so early? Steve rushed home to confront her. When he arrived, he found Sydney alone and visibly worried. Sydney told him she was having some trouble, but was still attending classes. What would you do in this situation? Would you believe your child, or would you press for the truth? Steve wanted to believe his daughter, to trust her word and provide her the comfort she needed. Despite his concern, he was understanding. He assured Sydney they would work through the challenges together, but he also recognized her distress. She felt lost and afraid of disappointing her family. He suggested they call Brenda, who was at work at the hospital. Brenda decided to come home to talk to Sydney, wanting to provide support and reassurance. Tragically, Steve left before she arrived, unaware that the next hour would change everything. The final hours. As Brenda drove home, she was completely unaware of the storm brewing inside her daughter. Sydney was in the midst of a deep internal crisis, feeling overwhelmed by the web of lies and failures she had created. The pressure to succeed, to present herself as the perfect daughter, had become too much to bear. Inside her mind, Sydney wrestled with feelings of shame and fear, struggling to cope with the weight of expectation. While Brenda was on her way, she and Steve exchanged texts, sharing their worries about Sydney's situation. They both felt a mix of concern and hope, believing they could help their daughter navigate through this difficult time. Brenda, determined to get to the bottom of things, decided to call the college administrators. She wanted to understand what was really going on with Sydney and find a way to support her. But as Brenda spoke with the college officials, something unimaginable happened. A loud thud and then a piercing scream echoed through the phone line, sending shockwaves through her. What could have possibly gone wrong in that brief moment? Witnesses nearby reported hearing a loud crash followed by a chilling scream, marking a turning point in the lives of the Powell family. It was clear that the intense pressure to succeed had pushed Sydney to her breaking point. Brenda had always been the calming presence in their family, known for her caring nature and ability to support others in times of crisis. She had dedicated her life to helping sick children and their families at the hospital. Yet this time, there would be no comforting words or calming reassurance. Instead, the chaos of the moment shattered the peace of their lives, leaving Brenda unaware of the tragedy that had just unfolded. The unraveling. As the authorities arrived at the scene, they were met with a heartbreaking sight. Brenda Powell had tragically lost her life at the hands of her daughter, Sydney. It was almost impossible to comprehend that a daughter could harm her mother, especially one who had spent her life caring for others and helping sick children. How could such a devastating event occur in a family that had always seemed so close and loving? The police investigation quickly uncovered the shocking details surrounding Brenda's death. The very kitchen tools that Brenda had once used to prepare family meals had been turned into weapons against her. The forensic pathologist revealed that Brenda had died from multiple blunt and sharp force injuries, a horrific reality that left everyone reeling. In a fit of rage, Sydney had struck her mother multiple times on the head with a heavy cast-iron skillet. This brutal attack was just the beginning of the tragedy. In a panic, she then grabbed a steak knife and stabbed her mother repeatedly in the neck, at least 23 times. The evidence showed that Brenda had fought back, with cuts and bruises on her face, arms, and hands indicating her desperate attempts to defend herself from her own daughter, someone she loved dearly. This brutal scene shattered the peaceful image of their family life, replacing it with an unimaginable horror. Neighbors, friends, and the community struggled to make sense of how this tragedy unfolded. The questions piled up. What could have led Sydney to such an extreme act? What pressures had built up inside her, leading to this horrific moment? The answers would take time to unravel, but one thing was clear: the Powell family would never be the same again. The news of Brenda's tragic death sent shockwaves through the Akron community. Many mourned the loss of a woman who had dedicated her life to helping children and families. The community struggled to comprehend how such a tragedy could unfold. How could a daughter betray her mother in such a horrific way? Sydney was arrested and charged with the murder of her mother. The case raised difficult questions about mental health, the pressures of academia, and the toll they take on young people. What could have been done to prevent this tragedy? In the aftermath of Brenda's death, many began to re-evaluate the expectations placed on children and the immense pressure they feel to succeed. Conversations around mental health grew louder, urging society to recognize the signs of distress in young people. Brenda's death served as a stark reminder of the importance of mental health awareness. The legal proceedings began as Sydney faced trial for her mother's murder. The courtroom was filled with tension as the evidence was presented, painting a vivid picture of the events that led to Brenda's tragic death. The prosecution presented a compelling case, detailing the horrific nature of the crime and the evidence that supported their claims. Sydney's attorneys contended that the attack had occurred during a psychotic break, arguing that she could not comprehend that her actions were wrong. They pointed to her catatonic state after the killing as evidence of her mental instability. Additionally, they suggested that her continued denial of her reality, specifically that she had been kicked out of college, was indicative of schizophrenia. To support their claims, they brought in 3 psychological experts to testify. Sydney told one of them that she did not remember the attack at all. Her last memory of her mother was of sitting on the couch together, being comforted by her. She claimed she then got up and went into the basement, stating she had no recollection until she woke up in the hospital after the attack. The prosecution, however, countered with a different perspective. They pointed to Sydney's methodical staging of the scene as evidence of her mental fitness at the time of the attack. They called a clinical psychologist as a rebuttal witness who diagnosed Sydney with borderline personality traits and an unspecified anxiety disorder. This psychologist concluded that Sydney was feigning mental unfitness to pervert the course of justice, further complicating the already tragic narrative. Ultimately, the jury faced a difficult decision. On September 20th, 2023, Sydney Powell was found guilty on all counts. first-degree murder, second-degree murder, aggravated assault, and tampering with evidence. The courtroom was filled with a mix of emotions as the verdict was read. There were tears of sorrow and disbelief from friends and family who had known Brenda as a beacon of hope in the community. And there was a heavy silence surrounding Sydney, who had once been a bright student and a beloved daughter. The judge sentenced Sydney to 20 years to life in prison, allowing for the possibility of parole. This decision sparked further debate about mental health issues among young adults, especially in academic settings. Many felt that Sydney needed rehabilitation and support rather than simply punishment. While some argued for compassion and understanding, others struggled to reconcile the notion of mercy with the brutal reality of Brenda's death. As the gavel struck, marking the conclusion of the trial, it also marked the end of a family that once epitomized success and love. Brenda's absence left an irreplaceable void in the lives of those who had known her, especially the young patients and families she had supported throughout her career. Many of her colleagues and friends came together to honor her legacy, creating scholarships in her name to help young children and families in crisis. The tragic story of Brenda and Sydney Powell quickly spread beyond the confines of Akron, capturing national attention. Articles and news reports began discussing the intense pressure placed on young people, especially high-achieving students. Advocates for mental health awareness took to social media platforms, urging society to foster open conversations about mental health in schools and families. Many parents found themselves reevaluating the expectations they placed on their children. Schools across the country began to integrate mental health resources, emphasizing the importance of emotional well-being alongside academic success. The hashtag #MentalHealthMatters began trending, serving as a rallying cry for those advocating for change in how society approaches mental health issues. Brenda's death served as a cautionary tale, sparking discussions about the importance of recognizing signs of distress in loved ones. Mental health organizations launched campaigns focused on empowering individuals to seek help, emphasizing that success is not merely defined by grades or achievements, but also by emotional stability and overall well-being. As the community of Akron grieved, they also began to heal together. Memorials for Brenda were organized, providing a space for people to share their memories and pay their respects. Friends and family recalled her compassion and dedication, remembering her not just for her tragic end, but for the love and kindness she had shared throughout her life. Local churches and community centers hosted gatherings, encouraging discussions about mental health. Families shared their own stories, emphasizing the importance of communication and support. Brenda's legacy became a beacon for change, inspiring a movement towards greater understanding and compassion. The tragic events surrounding Brenda and Sydney Powell resonate deeply within the community and beyond. They serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the need to prioritize mental health awareness, especially among young people. As we reflect on this heartbreaking story, it becomes crucial to acknowledge the immense pressures placed on students and to advocate for open dialogues around mental health. Schools, parents, and communities must work together to create environments where young people feel safe to express their struggles and seek help. Brenda Powell's life was a testament to the power of compassion. And while her story ended in tragedy, her legacy continues to inspire change. It's a call to action for all of us to be vigilant, to listen, and to support one another, ensuring that no one feels alone in their darkest moments. Brenda Powell's story reminds us that every life has value and that our actions can have far-reaching consequences. Her dedication to helping others' lives on in the hearts of those she touched, and her memory will continue to inspire efforts to promote mental health awareness and support for those in need. In honor of Brenda, we must commit ourselves to fostering environments where every young person can thrive, feel valued, and seek help without fear of judgment. It is our responsibility to break the stigma surrounding mental health, ensuring that stories like Brenda's become a catalyst for change rather than a tale of tragedy.